Joe Walsh, AM 560, The Answer. Former Congressman Joe Walsh on The Answer. You can follow me on Twitter, at Walsh Freedom, at Walsh Freedom. I've said this about 1,900 times in the last year and a half. I have very little hope that we will ever get back a free America, but that very little hope I have is based on the work that my guest in the studio right now does, is based on an organization that I've talked about a whole bunch before, Turning Point USA. Their website is turningpointusa.net. They are what I like to refer to as the warriors on high school and college campuses, educating and exposing young Americans to free markets, freedom, and capitalism. Charlie Kirk joins me in studio.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
Hello, my friend.
School is back in session, and we're back to work.
So explain to my listeners what that means, because when you say school is back in session, you're referring to something different. What are you up to?
Yeah, it's a little different than just, showing up to class. For us, it means the restart of an academic activism calendar for us. So while most students are going to school to learn, or as I like to say, be indoctrinated, we're trying to reverse that trend and be the voice of freedom and limited government and individual liberty on these campuses. So our 42 full-time field staffers across the country are...
You've got 42 now.
42 on staff.
Wow.
That's almost been a multiple of 5 since the last time, we've chatted.
Yeah.
It's the largest staff that does this type of work in the country. And, these young, experienced 20-somethings are hitting the campuses every single day and organizing chapters, registering voters, collecting data. Very similar stuff to what Obama's community organizers did back in 08 and 12. So as school is now back in session, we're seeing record numbers of recruitments and inquiries and students that really want to get engaged and involved. Just in Ohio alone, we were able to register hundreds of new voters in a single day that were not registered in 2008 and 2012.
I want to stop you there because this is so darn important. The voice belongs to Charlie Kirk. He's the founder of Turning Point USA. There's no group that is bigger on these college campuses educating and exposing kids to freedom and limited government. And now you are literally getting young people registered to vote.
That's right.
Take Ohio again.
Mm-hmm.
You're registering students to vote who've never been registered.
Never been registered before, but they believe in freedom. They believe in limited government. They believe that the status quo needs to be drastically changed. They believe in capitalism, whatever, pro-freedom, index you want to use as a way to measure it. But these are young people that are going to be, like you and I, Joe. They believe that we need to return to less government and more freedom, and they're not voting.
Why have they not been registered?
Well, first of all, the Republican conservative infrastructure has never reached out to them in the first place. And when an Obama staffer in 2012 was registering voters, these types of individuals were not recruited by them, and nor should they have been. Their outreach was very effective, and the fact that we're finding young people like this just goes to show that there are millions and millions of freedom lovers out there without even having to persuade.
You don't have to persuade.
Well, we do, and that's a big component of what we do. But let's just make sure our base is identified and registered and properly mobilized before we even have to persuade. There's 23 million young people in colleges right now. About a third of them are going to be registered to vote. So you look at, let's say 16 million young people are not registered to vote.
Right.
Not all of them are going to be liberals. A good portion of them do believe in freedom, liberty, limited government, so on and so forth, and we really communicate to them rather well.
Why? And
Mm-hmm.
again, you're not political because you are a charitable organization. You're an educational organization. But why hasn't our side, the freedom side, the limited government side, been on these college campuses before?
There's many different reasons, and if I had to boil it down to one common denominator, it's not easy work, and more so than not, it's not very. I have to be careful how I say this. It's not very profitable work for big organizations. It's much easier to cut a 30-second television ad, purchase millions of dollars worth of advertising, and get a 5% commission off the top. There's companies that are set up to do that, and there's consulting agencies that do that rather well. What we do is much more organic. It's doing the clipboard and tennis shoes type of work, getting to a campus at 7:30 in the morning, staying there till 9 o'clock at night, getting some really energetic, enthused young people, some of those that you met this summer, Joe,
Yeah, love.
and getting them to stay on those campuses in long hours. And, there's a passion and authenticity that I think that has been missing from the movement that is a key component to our success.
Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA. Their website is turningpointusa.net. They are fighting. In fact, they're the only group fighting our fight, freedom and limited government, free markets, capitalism on college campuses, high schools as well, but on college campuses. This organization deserves your support. Go to their website and support them, turningpointusa.net. Charlie, you've got 42 full-time staffers
42.
on
growing.
these campuses. What's a typical job day? What do these folks do?
Yeah, so every day they wake up and they have to go to a different college campus, and we have quotas and benchmarks that we require out of them every single day, which requires they have to recruit at least 25 individuals every day. Most of them far exceed that, but that's our minimum. That's our basement. Just for example, at Ohio State, you'll do 200, 250 in one day. And then you have to start or communicate with some sort of pre-existing college group on that campus. And most importantly, you have to set up shop, if you will, on that campus and talk to the persuadables, talk to the students that are liberal, and use our recruitment materials, use our activism supplies, and be a vocal, very visible and effective voice for freedom and limited government. So you'll see our posters, our banners, our flyers, all that sort of stuff. That's advertisement to thousands, tens of thousands, millions of students that otherwise would have never have heard this message because of their left-wing ideologue professors.
What are they doing? They're just your folks are just sort of setting up a card table in the middle of a.
In some ways, it's it depends on the campus, but it's a booth, if you will, with incredibly visible posters, and it's stuff that culturally relevant that gets students' attention.
The pictures you've sent are just so cool.
It's amazing, and you see the energy. And I mean, some people say, well, Charlie, one of your slogans is big government sucks. Who could disagree with that? So yeah, but hey, you look at some of our other material, Joe, we have posters that say big government hurts the middle class, or shrink government, grow freedom, or, I want lower taxes and I want it now. I mean, it's pretty hard to go through all these different things. And you see the young people holding up these signs and these banners and getting registered to vote. They agree with our message. And I just refuse to believe that 60 and 70% of these young people should continually be categorized as far left-wing ideologues. And we're really proving it's with the proper outreach and the organizing and being that voice on campus, we can start to see generational change for the better.
You and I have debated this issue. I think you're educating me on this issue. And I need my listeners to hear this. You firmly believe that young people, college-age people, are more uninformed and not exposed to freedom and limited government, as opposed to literally being opposed to these ideas.
100%. They've never been exposed to it, and I still make a case, and sometimes you disagree with me, Joe, and I respect that young people, on a majority, will agree with our value system, will vote that way if properly reached out to. If you really boil it down, young people, almost to an 80 to 90% margin, do not trust the federal government. They believe our system is rigged and broken. They want more freedom and less government. And they believe, more so than not, that they are the best captain, if you will, of their life. And they don't want a bureaucrat to tell them how to live and do what they do.
Amen. Why then do they tend to vote Democrat?
Well, let's boil it down. First of all, we've been very poor messengers as a party and as a movement.
Yeah.
Second of which, we haven't had the mechanics or the infrastructure to reach these young people. Mm-hmm. And third, and I think, quite frankly, most importantly, is we have people in the Republican Party, not we, Turning Point, that do not speak the message of true freedom. Yeah. And there is a hypocritical crony capitalist underlying tone.
Right.
That give young people the impression, well, there is no difference between the two parties. Therefore, I will vote for the one that is closest to my social agenda. Yeah. So when there is no differentiation between the two economic outlooks of the Democratic and the Republicans, and sometimes there isn't, a young person will say, fine, I'll just vote for whoever agrees with gay marriage or drug legalization.
Right.
But if you give a true contrast, which I believe some candidates are starting to do, Rand Paul in particular, that's why he gets young people to show up in record numbers.
Right.
Ted Cruz, people such as that, young people will gravitate towards that. And they will say, there is a difference. This person does stand for freedom and liberty. They will get government in my life. and the left stands for growing government and making the bloated inefficiency of bureaucracies continue to expand.
Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, turningpointusa.net. Check them out. They are fighting our fight, freedom, limited government on college campuses. More from Charlie right after this.
Bold, brash, brutally honest. It's Joe Walsh.
Joe Walsh, former Congressman Joe Walsh on The Answer. I'm live in the studio with Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, the founder, the head of Turning Point USA. We speak so much about this wonderful organization. Turning Point USA is America's last hope. They are fighting the fight out there to expose and educate young people to freedom and limited government. And nobody, no other group in the country does what they do, fighting this fight, engaged in this education on college campuses. Charlie, take a state like Ohio. And again, I know your organization is not political, but just walk me through between now and I think there's going to be election next year. You literally, in a state like Ohio, can get how many young freedom fighters registered?
And again, we're an educational organization, so from a purely civic engagement standpoint,
to get people registered.
Absolutely. We're looking at in Ohio alone getting new people on the rolls between 12 to 14,000 new people.
That's amazing.
It is incredible, and that doesn't count all the recruited students and educated students and just further identified. And these are young people that otherwise would have been dormant, otherwise would have just stayed at home, would have not have been compelled to have been registered to vote or engaged in the process. And I think we hear all the time, Joe, we hear this, the youth are lost, the generation is liberal. I'm telling you, I've never been more optimistic for this generation. You go on a college campus, you follow around one of our field coordinators that does this work every single day, you will see there is an undercurrent in this country to fight back against the Washington establishment and big government policies that have been poorly affecting this generation.
Can I pour a little bit of cold water on all of this, and then I want you to swat that cold water away? Mm-hmm. What is the opposition doing on these campuses right now?
They're beyond organized, and they are every single time. Every single time, meaning every season, every month, every semester. They're very, very good at what they do.
And you all see them on these college campuses?
And we do.
Okay.
We encounter them, whether it be MoveOn.org, Planned Parenthood, the National Association for Gun Control, PETA, which amazingly works with the left, Sierra Club, all these groups, the Students Against Global Warming, all that crazy stuff. We encounter them, we fight them. And so the thing that really makes what we're doing interesting is, for us, if we move, the ball 1 yard forward, it's so much more proportionately helpful to the movement than even if the left is able to keep their ground.
Right.
Because we've been losing so terribly on these college campuses. To make a societal difference, all we have to do is really just recruit another 1,000 kids, register another 500, engage another 6,000, and that makes such a bigger difference. So the left has to fight that much harder just to keep treading water. And we're already making incredible gains into their power.
Are you all over the country? Are
all
you
over the
every
country,
state?
all 50 states. We're on 1,000 campuses, and our 42 field staffers cover 37 states. So.
You're hopeful, aren't you?
Always.
Charlie, when you look at the Republican field, I'm just asking you a political question on the side. Are any of these candidates, are they preaching or speaking to something that's attracting young people?
We hosted a rally for Ted Cruz and Rand Paul out in Washington, D.C., and we had 1,100 young people. And I have to say, those two probably communicate best to the younger audience. Ted Cruz in particular is able to talk about how government has continued to grow because of both parties' agreement and really has made young people's lives for the worse. And I think Rand Paul, to his credit, has really been able to reach out to younger communities rather effectively. And why is that? Why is the Cruz and the Pauls getting the attentions of the younger generation and not the Bushes and the...
Why is that?
So, and I can answer the question pretty well. They talk about a different breed of conservatism and Republican thought, and that is, I'm going to stand on principle and not on party. I'm going to start on true individual liberty and freedom, not just this, party dogma that people want me to follow. And I think young people can gravitate that rather well. And inherently, young people will gravitate towards an anti-establishment candidate. I think the country's really thirsting for one, henceforth Donald Trump.
Okay, but are you
Not necessarily Donald Trump, but the hunger that people are feeling out there for an anti-establishment candidate is very similar to that.
But you're on these campuses. Are you hearing anybody say Trump?
Not as much.
Trump.
A little bit, but not too much.
Hey, Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, turningpointusa.net is their website. Again, I will end where I began. I have so very little hope that we'll ever become a free country again. The only reason I have a smidgen of hope is because of the work that Turning Point USA does. They are fighting the fight for freedom and limited government on college campuses. No other group on our side is doing this. Oh, man, he's got 42 full-time folks, young people on these campuses. Please support this group. Go to their website, turningpointusa.net. Give them whatever you can give them so that they can engage in the battle of ideas on college campuses. Charlie, thanks.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, hold